Welcome to the program. Our focus on discussion segment on Insight today shall be on building on democratic strides as the 9th National Assembly takes off in Nigeria. We'll look at oversighting, bills, committees, rule of law, separation of powers, bipartisanship within the two chambers of the National Assembly, the Senate and the House of Representatives, given the fact that we saw truly the beauty of democracy play out on the day the two chambers were inaugurated. That will be the focus of the program on Insight today. And on media review, Lizzie?
Yes, of course, the 9th Assembly has been inaugurated. Nigerians are hopeful and they're expectant, actually. And on the media review segment, we shall be taking a look at the role of the media. Will there be dramas, controversies? How will the people, the citizenry, perceive what the leadership would be doing? These are some of the issues we'll be taking a look at.
And most times I get worried whenever there's a disagreement between the legislature and the executive. People misinterpret it.
Of course.
It is natural that they are two arms of government. They function independently and interdependently.
Yes.
So I'll be happy to hear your guest tell us what the media will do to educate Nigerians, understand that whenever there's disagreement, it's not a fight.
At all.
We disagree to agree.
To agree.
Okay? I want to watch that segment.
Okay.
Well, that will be about that on Insight Today. Up next on the program is the discussion segment. On this segment of Insight Today, we shall be looking at after the inauguration of the 9th National Assembly. What next? A couple of weeks ago, we did ahead of the 9th National Assembly, and the expectations were really high. Is it possible now that it's been inaugurated, those expectations will be achieved? Well, I have a distinguished senator, Senator Barau Jibrin, All Progressives Congress, representing Kano North Senatorial District. It's good to have you on Insight.
It's good. It's great to be with you.
And from Abga, we have Right Honorable Prestige Ossy, representing Aba North South Federal Constituency, Abia State. Good to have you.
Thank you, it's my pleasure.
Okay, before I go into the issue, let me come up with this. I read this piece a couple of minutes before we came on set. We are in a democracy, not a dictatorship. Next level means obeying the rule of law, strengthening our core moral values and democratic institutions. When we talk about the legislature, a lot of people say that's where the beauty of democracy is domiciled. That's where you have the entire gamut of the country represented. So, after the inauguration, what next?
Well, it's really nice to have seen that the whole process of our inauguration went smoothly without any hiccups. Now the expectation is high in respect to the demands of people on the National Assembly. And I want to tell you with every assurance that we are really up to the task, and we are set, we are good to go, and we hit the ground running in making sure that we come out with laws, legislations that will go a long way to address issues that are of greatest importance to the people of this country, particularly issues of security, our economy, and the entire well-being of Nigerians. I've spoken with my colleagues, and everybody is set. And I can assure you, in the next few weeks or months, you will begin to see things that will really fascinate you. So we are ready to go.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm happy that the two of you are ranking senator and ranking member in the National Assembly.
Yeah.
And going to Honorable Ossy, coming from the 7th National Assembly, the 8th National Assembly, and we are now on the 9th National Assembly, comparatively, what would you say?
Yeah, yes, I think just like both distinguished said, the 9th Assembly is set. The 8th Assembly started on a very good note as well, despite the challenges. But I want to assure you that the 9th Assembly started on a very, very right footing. Immediately after the inauguration, we all left, and on Thursday, we reconvened inaugural sitting. And right there and then, the Speaker, Right Honorable Femi Bajabeamila, read his speech to members. And if you go to that house, you see at the back of the Speaker's seat, you see a plaque where all the parties and their logos are conspicuously displayed. Mr. Speaker made us to understand that that is to show that all the parties, because all the parties voted for him, if you check the outcome of that election, that it represents all the parties, and since all the parties voted for him, every party will contribute their own quota to the development of the 9th Assembly. Okay. And aside from that, he immediately had a meeting where all the members of the select committee and the welfare committee were inaugurated. As we speak, they are all meeting just to be on the speed which Mr. Speaker has set. And I want to assure you that this 9th Assembly, from the way we started, is going to do something better than the other assemblies, okay, from the way I'm seeing it from now.
Well, if you are just joining us, the two guests, I have Senator Barau Jibrin, is of the All Progressives Congress, a ranking senator, and Ossy is from the All Progressive Grand Alliance. They are not of the same political party. I know why I came up with this. Now, on the floor of the Green Chamber, you have a collegiate of members who came on the platform of various political parties, like he has said. Now, the concern by Nigerians is with the beauty we saw on the day of inauguration in both chambers, where it wasn't just about APC or PDP or APGA, it was everybody coming together to come up with leadership. We saw democracy in action. Is it possible if we get it wrong from day one, it won't work out that way, there will be fisting?
Well, let me say one thing. Yeah. What you saw that day is an indication of what you are going to see in the life of the 9th Senate. You can see that senators are, have the burning desire to work together, forget about political divides, forget about party affiliations, in making sure that we work together to better the lives of the people of this country, bringing out laws that will address the burning issue, the burning problem of security in this country, that will rearrange our economy so that it can be sound and up and running, that will address issues of education, health, and so on and so forth. So we are not talking about party affiliation this time around, but we are talking about one thing, national interest. So from the day one, you've seen it, and it's going to continue this way. I have interacted, because I was a principal officer in the campaign that brought in Senator Amelon and Senator Omar Agege. By my interactions with various groups of senators, individually and collectively, it has shown to me that, look, it's no longer going to be business as usual, where you put party affiliations, party, point of view at the expense of national interest. Okay. Now, one point, one focus, the focal point is national interest, okay, and that's how it's going to be.
Okay. Now, what he said is implied with reps, because we saw the same picture. It was now departing from that into oversight. Will it likely affect oversight so positively or negatively?
Oh, it's going to affect positively. If you recall what happened in the 8th Assembly, just like you initially said, most of the gray areas, were unmasked by the legislature. I'm sure it's going to be more now, because in 8th Assembly, we had issues where we are disagreeing along party lines. But like the way we started now, where almost everybody is on the same page, I'm sure we're going to give Nigerians what they expected, if not more than what they expected from us in terms of oversight. Because from experience, it is this oversight that has been able to unveil some of those people who, in one way or the other, compromised their offices. And from the meeting we had on Thursday with the Speaker, who charged us to go on oversight and report back what will impress Nigerians, what will make Nigerians great, what Nigerians believe that this National Assembly will give them what they want. So on that basis, I want to assure you Nigerians that we are going to give our best in terms of oversight, because that's the only way we can get the executive to account.
So we're not likely to see a situation where, for instance, you are from ABGA, you're elected under ABGA, right? And maybe Senator Jibrin leads a team to a state where it is ABGA, and because it is ABGA, you try to cover up things.
No.
Coming from APC.
No, we can't do
That's
that.
concern.
No, we can't do that. It's not possible.
Okay.
You know, it's not possible. Like, you know, in the configuration in the House of Reps today, we have about 20 members who are not either PDP or APC. We have 9 members from ABGA and other parties, AA, APM, and all that. That's about 20 of them. And these 20 will be in different committees. And being in different committees, we all have one goal. The goal is to give Nigerians expose corruption, which is part of our duties. So our goal is to make sure that wherever we go on this oversight, that we report back to the House what will give Nigerians that security that we want, what will improve on our economy, what will give us the infrastructural development that we want, what will bring to book those who refuse to do things according to the laws of the land. So you are not going to get such frictions because they are coming to my state. I am from a state where the PDP is the government in place, and I am the only ABGA. So there's no way you can come to an oversight in Abia, and because it's a PDP state, I will not say things that I don't like. If there are things that I don't like, I will say it out. And every other person is also expected to key into that, because what we want to do is to do things that will make Nigeria better. We're not talking about our individual parties or individual states, but what will make Nigeria great, which is why we are elected by Nigerians from different political parties.
Whenever we see mild dramas at the legislature, maybe reps or senate, it's always very interesting, and people give it a coloration. So that is the beauty of democracy. For instance, he's coming from Kano, APC, you're coming from Abia, ABGA, and you find yourself in one room trying to fix things together. Something was not visible during the 8th National Assembly. We used to hear juicy committees, non-juicy committees, and you are coming from the majority. In Senate, APC forms majority. In Reps, APC forms majority. In terms of committees, we used to hear that there is infighting among committees. Would this affect your operations, looking at the two chambers?
Well, let me just say, you see, the issue of which committee does one senator or member of House of Reps wants to work or wants to belong to, I think it has to do with aspirations, individual aspirations. You see, one probably might say, okay, before he won the election, that he wants to focus more on agriculture. Okay. Coming from an area that has the dominant, where the practice of agriculture is dominant. Now, when he comes in with that aspiration, he will always want to be in the Committee of Agriculture. You understand? One could look, maybe you come from Niger where you have a power station and so on and so forth, and probably your people want you to go and kind of intervene one way or the other in making sure that the people in Niger have the greatest deal, the best deal, in respect to the operations of the power companies situated in that area. So once that member comes into the National Assembly, he will begin to think of belonging to the power committee. So these are the kind of, it's not an issue that is based on...
That's the picture we'll get most of
the issue. Yeah. So that's why you find clamors, all right?
Okay.
But I want to tell you, every committee is important. It depends on the personality. If you are a very hardworking senator and you are appointed to chair a committee that people, normally regards, that committee as people regard it, that maybe is not a grade A committee, but if you're a hardworking person, you can turn around things in that committee to make it very, very prominent and influential. So it depends on the personality. But of course, you have that clamor. You have based on interest, based on aspirations. And politics is all about aspirations. It's about the clamor to better the lives of your people. And there's nothing wrong about that. And this clamor will continue in every democracy, not Nigerian democracy alone.
Okay, still on you.
Yeah.
You form majority in the both chambers.
Yeah.
And is it possible that if you don't manage your majority status well, it could become a misnomer for you guys?
Well, I want to tell you, with
aloud.
the configuration of the leadership of the Senate and House of Representatives, I don't think that will play out this time, that kind of situation you are anticipating. Because you have seasoned legislators who have been in the legislature for quite a long time, who have gotten the cognitive experience, and they are really grounded in terms of their intellectual requirement for such the offices they are occupying now. I mean, the Senate President, the Speaker, and Deputy Senate President. So there are people who have the zeal to perform. So they are going to lead the National Assembly in a way that we have the best, we make use of our majority status. And you can see what has been done. Despite, out of 64, I mean, we initially we had 65 members, senators who were from APC. Then we lost 3. Then we ended up with 62. But 60 endorsed and agreed to vote for Ahmed Lawan. Why? Because they have the confidence that he's going to be a good leader, and he's not taking that for granted. And you could also see that even the PDP from PDP, a lot of PDP came in to vote for him. It shows the confidence that the National Assembly or the senators have in him. All right? So he is going to make sure that he brings all his attributes, his positive attributes, to bear in making sure that he uses the majority status of the APC to the greatest advantage of the people of this country. Not only that, he is also, and he has started, working with the opposition. You could see how he was voted in, with a lot of PDP senators voting for him. Now, he's going to put that together, the majority that we have in the APC, together with the support he's having from the PDP senators, in making sure that he leverage on this situation to, bring in legislations or to put together a team in the entire Senate in making sure that we bring our legislation that will better the lives of the people of this country. I can assure you that will happen.
Okay.
Yeah.
We now expect that after the inauguration, given the way the party interests played around across all the political parties ahead of the inauguration, the fear was that if one party pushes in leadership, the problem of checks and balances, separation of powers will be abused. The scenario has painted plays out in Reps. Already, what we saw, the first ad hoc committee on media set up by the Speaker cut across all the political parties. One would expect that he would have picked from one political party. Now, what do you make of the rule of law, separation of powers in the 9th National Assembly? Will it play out better or worse?
Yes, I think it will play out better. Just like you have observed, that the few committees that have been inaugurated at the 9th House of Rep cut across all the political parties. And that is the spirit of the 9th Assembly. We are no longer talking about parties. Everybody sees himself as coming to serve Nigeria. We're mentioning parties at this point.
Do we say that's maturity?
Yes, it is. Okay. Yes, you have. Yes, 20 years is not 20 days, so we're growing. And from that alone, you will now see that we're working as one body, irrespective of where we come from. And I see the 9th Assembly having a more robust activities when it comes to the rule of law and separation of powers. That it played out like this during the election does not mean that there will be compromises. No. Everybody knows what is good for Nigeria. At this moment, we, like I said earlier on, we are talking about how to develop this country, how to move this country forward. And we see Nigerians now understanding, especially from our own part, the legislator, observing the rule of law as the basics of democracy. And the rule of law is the fulcrum of modern democracy. Remove the rule of law, we are into dictatorship, tyranny, and all that. So the 9th Assembly from the onset, sees this as part of what they are going to do in order to make sure that Nigerians have a little bit idea, totally different from what they have about the National Assembly. So I see the Ninth Assembly being a time where separation of powers and rule of law will be the order of the day, irrespective of the number of APC members there and APC government that is in place. We are collapsing, and we have already collapsed all parties to one, and that party is the party called the Nigerian Project.
Okay. Now, the next interesting question. You remember I started with a quote. Judging by this quote, it says, strengthen our core moral values and democratic institutions. Governance, party interests, policy, legislature. How do you tie them?
Well,
it's quite a
yes, yeah. Well,
governance, party interest, legislature, governance.
Yes, as I said, what should be our focus is national interest.
Sure.
I believe a party, Party A and Party B, are gearing to make sure they attain one thing, that is making the lives of the people of this country better. But the only difference is that our thinking, or the thinking of Party A as to how to get to that destination, might be different from that of Party B. All right, but they are moving to the same destination.
Okay.
All right, and of course, morality is a watchword in the way you go about meeting the targets you've set for yourself. Moral values, have to be strengthened. So I believe that, okay, and party interest. The party interest we're talking about is just, related to the first explanation I've just given. The party interests of PDP, the party interest of APC, all are the same. They are geared toward meeting a desired result of making sure the lives of the people of this country are turned to a better way, that this country, if you like, will be called an El Dorado. All right? So once we understand that, and we've understood that in the National Assembly, what we need to do is to make sure at every point in time, when we come to critical issues affecting this country, we should put aside party interests and look at national interest. And also look at the democratic ways of meeting this target. Bringing the issues of, like you said, checks and balances.
Absolutely.
Separation of powers to bear into the whole process. Of course, you need to bring in the issue of checks and balances, because you do not want power to concentrate on one arm of government alone. Yeah. Because when you do that, it will go against the spirit of democracy. It will turn to dictatorship. All right? Yeah. And when you must bring in the issue of check and balances as well, so that one arm will put an eye in line with the Constitution to make sure that one arm is checking the other. For instance, the money of this country is domiciled with the executive. The president and the apparatus of executive takes care of our money.
And the money does not have political party coloration.
It doesn't have political coloration. But again, the system does not allow the executive to determine how that money will be spent. It can only make a proposal. Once it makes the proposal, it brings in that proposal to the National Assembly, and then we cross-check. Is that okay? Is it in tandem with the wishes and aspirations of the people of this country? And then we get it approved. Because if you allow a situation where the executive arm of government holds the money and then decides or try to dictate how this money is spent in line with his whims and caprices, then we're in trouble. Okay. So we need to marry all these things together. The democratic conventions, ethos, ideals, bring them together to go on, to move on with our national interest, so that everybody will work around our national interest, and that will allow us to achieve our aim and aspirations for the people of this country, that will turn around our life so that our country will change for the better of all. Okay. So it is a combination of all these factors you've listed that we need to bring together. Okay. And in tandem with the wishes and aspirations of the people of this country, so that we achieve the target of making sure that the lives of the people of this country become better.
Okay. All right. Moving on. One of the problems we have had over the years was the problem of effective communication, effective representation. And most times, because we don't have openness, the public, that is Nigerians, your constituents, the people you represent, tend to feel that there's always a sustained fisticuff between the executive and the legislature. For instance, in the 8th National Assembly, we had cases where bills passed for Mr. President's assent were returned. There was a misunderstanding until the National Assembly was open to the public to say, these are the reasons why these bills were returned by Mr. President. Some were grammatical errors, punctuation errors, and at the appropriate time when they were corrected, he signed. Now, where do we stand in the 9th National Assembly regarding openness, information flow, and the passage of bills?
Yeah, I think...
I'm looking at the two chambers collectively now.
Yes, I think those errors were noted. And if you check the last 4 or 5 bills that the president returned, one of them was the Electoral Act, Electoral Bill. You will find out that though after the corrections, some of them were signed. And that also puts the 8th Assembly, on notice that before any bill is sent to the president for his assent, that I should do a thorough check. And I think after that, no such mistakes has been made. So I think we will learn our lessons from the 8th Assembly. So going forward, I'm sure the president will not be able to return any of the bills based on those, little mistakes that were observed. And also in the area of communication, I want to state here that most times it is maybe because our constituents do not have the information before them based on the fact that maybe they don't, get in touch maybe with their televisions and all that. And some of us who usually go to our constituents, it takes us time for you to also explain this to the extent that everybody will be in the know. But like I said, it is a process. We have learned that we should now make sure that these things are done and done properly. And you, the media, also have a role to play. It's not just we, members of the National Assembly. You have a role to play. If the president returns a bill back to the National Assembly, and you are aware that he returned a bill, there are reasons, that are adduced why those bills were returned. It's also part of your own responsibility to also educate the public that this bill was returned based on this. Because the press also have, a little bit of the blame. Sometimes some part of the press will escalate it, that the executive and judicial and the legislative rift has widened. That is why the president is not signing bills passed by the National Assembly. So the fourth estate of the realm have a role here to play by also letting the Nigerian public understand the reasons behind returning such bills. When we work together that way, there's no way Nigerians will continue to misunderstand us. So you are the middleman. The press is the middleman between the National Assembly and the executive. So I also want the press to look at it from that perspective, that all those pictures, all those videos that we post, that will expand, should be minimized, because it's also costing us, as a nation, a lot of damage. Okay. And it's not nice. I heard the other day that Chicago is the worst city in the world, where within a weekend, 26 people were killed within Chicago alone. And if that can happen in Chicago, you can imagine Chicago, United States of America, and Nigeria. So the press have a big role to play here. Absolutely. And I implore you to please let it be that we are all having the same national interest. The National Assembly cannot be taken of national interest, the executive national interest, the judiciary national interest, when the press is busy dividing Nigeria more. And those things that are coming from the press is what the Western world listens to. That's what they believe in. Okay. And you scare away the foreign direct investors, even those who want to come here to do one thing or the other, they'll be scared because the pictures they are seeing from the press is not really welcoming. So in this question too, I will also implore the press to please do the needful and protect Nigeria as our number one project. Okay. If every member, both the National Assembly, the judiciary, the executive, and the press, sees Nigeria as a project, I'm sure some of these things will be mitigated.
Okay. Now, the Nigerian National Assembly is an assemblage of very experienced persons. Starting from the Senate, you have, in short, the Senate now is like a welcoming ground for former governors, former ministers. Same for reps, you find very experienced persons. Today, when you talk about ranking members, ranking senators, you all fall in that category. I can't call you senator, I'll be calling distinguished senator, right honorable. Okay. Now, years back, you talk about nascent democracy. And now we have done 20 years, still counting. Would you say that truly we have now gotten a parliamentary culture in Nigeria and it is playing out the way we see in other climes?
Well, we are not there yet, but we are trying. I will want to say that the 16 years of PDP rule really created a problem for us. Well, the first 4 years of PDP was okay. I was in the House of Reps that time. But after, a lot of manipulations were brought into the legislature. And that was done to satisfy party interest. That's why we always talk about national interest. If this idea of national interest has been taken seriously in the legislature within the 16 years of PDP's rule, I think we'll have gotten far beyond where we are now. Take, for instance, there's nowhere on earth where voting is done secretly in any parliament in the world. But that was brought in order to create certain manipulations to achieve a desired objective. And that's not good.
So will you try to write that?
Of course.
I remember you tried to move a motion.
I went to court. I went to court.
So will you try to correct that?
Of course, that has to be corrected.
Okay.
We need to go in tandem with what is applicable in order, advance democracies. You see, you can't reinvent the wheel. Older democracies in the world have made trials about processes, ethos, traditions, conventions, and that they came up with all these conventions, established, advanced, conventions that have been tested. All right, but why should we throw that to the dogs and begin to pick certain things that we know are not good? But I said earlier, with the coming of these gentlemen as our leaders in both chambers of the National Assembly, I can assure you that we'll be at par. We'll begin to work in tandem with the tradition, conventions that are applicable in older democracies. And I want to say one thing. Yes, you have democracies that are 300 years old, and ours is 20 years old, but it doesn't mean that we need to spend 300 years before we get to where they are right now. Sure. Because for them, they did not have any things to depend on. They didn't have all set of conventions, traditions to really depend on when they started. They had to go into the process of trials and errors before they could get to where they are right now. But now we've gotten all these things from the older democracies. What we need to do is to apply the traditions, apply the conventions, and then we'll catch up with them. So we are not there yet, but with the present disposition of the National Assembly, with the current zeal of the members of both chambers, and the desire to refine and make a democracy to go in tandem with what is happening in other parliaments, to change our legislature, to go with what is applicable in other parliaments in the world, we will be able to achieve a lot at the end of the tenure of this National Assembly. I can assure you that.
Okay.
Let me also add to what more distinguished said earlier on. What your area of interest also determines the committee where you are placed. Like you are a journalist, you can't come in and chair committee on health
or works.
It has to be within the area where you specialize, because you are going to bring that experience in that your area of specialty to bear, in the work of the committee and in the work of the House. So it will be easier for a medical doctor to chair the committee on health. He knows what to do. He knows what to say. If it is a public hearing and all that, he knows how to articulate it, and it will be easy. Quite unlike somebody, who studied, say administration or something. So that also helps. So among the new ones, there are people who are also professionals who would also be engaged in such areas where they have specialty. And that gives, it blends the old and the new. So I'm not expecting that there will be a rift, or a dichotomy between the old, the ranking and the non-ranking. And sometimes, even when we came in newly, we started playing, letting them know that we're also ranking. That once we, take the oath of office, that is the day our ranking starts. So the same thing is applicable to them. They are also ranking as far as some of us are concerned, and they are integrated and are going to work together for the interest of Nigerians.
Okay. Now, there's a question I will ask before we tie up. We're about to tie up now. Something very phenomenal happened in the 8th National Assembly, which is the National Assembly passed a law backing a democracy day in Nigeria. What do you make of this in conclusion?
Well, I think it's something that should be applauded.
It was controverted before.
It should be. I need to commend the president for making sure that happens. That happened, and it's something we need to do, and we are doing it now. Is really, I'm happy about that, because we need to look at the past. You can't properly plan for the future. You can't build a nation by forgetting your past. Those who sacrifice their lives for democracy in this country need to be known to those who are even yet unborn. Okay. It's very, very important. If you know the efforts, how they put their life at stake to bring about democracy in this country, then we cherish the democracy we have. Those that are yet unborn, we cherish the democracy they are going to inherit from us. So it's quite very important. You could see the likes of Aminu Kano, Awolowo, Nnamdi Azikiwe. Then when you come down to recent history, Abiola himself, what he went through, he won the freest election ever conducted in this country, but was annulled. That has to be shown. He made sacrifice. He died in detention. They all sacrificed for democracy. So this history has to be made known to all of us, has to be strengthened, has to be emphasized, and it has to be kept in our history records so that those that are yet to be born should know when they are born. Okay. Because they would then understand the sacrifices that were made by our forebearers to bring about the democracy they are going to enjoy at that time. Okay. It's really important. Every society has to do that. Okay. And I'm happy that the Democracy Day is now going to be celebrated in this fashion. So it's something that should be welcomed by every Nigerian.
Thank you very much. The very last word. Without the people, we will not be where we are put together. So what will you say to the people as we move on to this democratic journey?
I think the people have given their best. The Nigerian people have sacrificed a lot. Each election year they come out to vote. At the end, some of them will even die in the process. Nigerian people have given everything within, their powers in order to make Nigeria what it is today. They've been good followers. My take to them is that they should continue in that stream. Okay. We who they elected to represent them, if there are things we are not doing well, I charge them to be vocal, to say you are not doing it rightly. And also to our umpires, electoral umpires, I want a situation where they will also be above board, because that is the springboard where most of us will pass through before we get to where we are today. Okay. And if we don't get it right from that end, it will also rub off on the people. And it is the people that gets, the whip at the end of the day if things are not done rightly at this level. So I want to congratulate Nigerians for their steadfastness and for their belief in this country. And God on our side, I'm sure we're going to see a better representation come 2019 to 2023.
Thank you so much. We have looked at building on democratic strides as the 9th National Assembly takes off. Well, Senator Barau Jibrin, it was nice talking with you on Insight.
Thank you for having me.
And also,
it's great being here.
Right Honorable Prestige Ossy, thanks for being on Insight.
Thank you, it's my pleasure.
Up next on Insight is the media review segment. Don't go away.